This is a little bit nerve-wracking because this is the fourth floor of the Dex Imaging Media Center at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and this is where the press conferences take place. As a matter of fact, if it's well after the race and you're sitting in this seat, it probably means you had a pretty good day here over the course of the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Now, this is a buzz of activity up here on the fourth floor of the Media Center because just behind me is the offices of the Speedway media staff. Anything that you need in terms of stats, figures, printouts, all that takes place in offices that are just behind me here. But in addition to that, the active working media is all here on the fourth floor. Just how many are we talking about? Well, all told, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway credentials around 1,500 people for the Indianapolis 500-mile race. That's representative of about 500 different media outlets from around the world. They all sit here on the fourth floor over the course of practice days, qualifying days, and race day, with monitors giving them live telemetry and scoring, letting them know everything that's happening out on the 2.5-mile oval. In addition to that, one of the great traditions of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is just over here to my right. That's because, again, for a place where cars were running over 100 miles an hour 100 years ago, it's hard to believe that sometimes things get a little bit rudimentary. But that wall that's all black right now will eventually simply have poster board on it where they write down the qualifying speeds, the 4-lap average for all 33 cars that will line up and make, of course, the field for the Indianapolis 500-mile race. It's one of the really fun traditions to see those poster boards with the driver, the car name, the sponsor, and then, of course, the 4-lap average. But this is where it all takes place. It's a fabulous view along the main straightaway of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you never know what you might see here. I always feel bad, to be honest with you, over the course of the month because there's a group of media and journalists from Japan that come to follow Takuma Sato, but they don't account for jet lag, and they always look so tired when they're up here. But fortunately, they give us all the caffeine we need, so it's not altogether a bad thing. They feed us here, they take care of us, they give us the information. We bond together as one in watching the greatest spectacle in racing. Here in the Dex Imaging Media Center on the fourth floor is the IMS Radio Network. Now, the IMS Radio Network used to be in the booth that's now television that we showed you in a different installment up on the ninth floor of the Pagoda. But now it's the Sid Collins booth, named after the founder of the IMS Radio Network that started this network back in 1952. You know, the Indianapolis 500 had been aired in terms of some live updates that started taking place by 1948. But in 1952, Sid Collins decided that they should use a network of radio stations to carry the live action. That all comes from right here in terms of the broadcasts themselves. Mark Jaynes is our chief announcer, the voice of the 500, if you will, and he sits right here in this particular seat. Right next to him is our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton. Sitting in this seat over here is Brian Livingston. He's the guy that is the brains behind everything. He hears everything that's going on. He's the producer. So he's telling Mark in terms of on the racetrack what's taking place and where Mark needs to throw it. Brian's kind of orchestrating everything. Along the wall here, Brian actually puts Post-it notes with a list of all of the pit reporters, and he moves it in accordance of which pit stall they're in. So at any point, Mark, if he has to, can look to his right, and let's say suddenly he realizes there's activity in Tony Kanaan's pit. No worries, Brian Livingston has moved the Post-it note to let him know Ryan Marine is there, so Mark can simply look over to throw. Now, in terms of how that all takes place, it's a lot more simple than you think. Chris Pollock, who's our general manager of the radio network, sits in this seat, and this is just one of the boxes that you see. You see this box here, it's got a button that says intercom and another button that goes over the air. So Chris can simply get on that intercom button. He can talk to any of us in the turns. We'll show you what the turns look like in another episode here with the Golden Badge. Or he can talk to everybody here along the main straightaway, if you will, of the radio network. Donald Davidson sits here as well, so too any guests or dignitaries in the area that right now is under plastic, because this sits just as it is, except for the days when there is a race or a broadcast here in the Sid Collins booth. I will say, as somebody who joined the network back in 2007, I've been out in turn 3 since 2016. I was in turn 2 prior to that. It's a huge honor. It's a huge, huge thrill to be able to do the race on the radio. So for those of you that listen to it right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan and 93.1 WIBC, we are most appreciative that you hear our voices that come from right here outside this booth. Here is the Turn 3 broadcast perch for the IMS Radio Network, and I am very privileged to say I'm the 11th person who has sat up here to call the Indianapolis 500-mile race succeeding Mark Jaynes, who became the anchor, the chief announcer back in 2016. Now, people ask me all the time where exactly we are. And the answer is simple. I am here atop the Northeast Vista at IMS. It's really pretty simple. You go to the top road and you climb right up into this little perch area. I've got a couple of chairs here that I sit on, pull those out, and then I just sit and enjoy the race. But exactly how am I heard? Well, that's another question. Rick Evans, our chief engineer, and Paul Levitt come and they leave this box here. Really, it's pretty simple. I plug in right here and I'm good to go. I can instantly hear the race in my ear. I extend the cord a little bit. I have two buttons. One of them right here simply mutes my microphone. My mic is hot at all times. Remember, I showed you how Sam Rumsa rides up and down that mic level. The other is the intercom. So if something happens on the track, I simply hit the intercom button, turn three, and I let them know to come to me. I wait, then I start talking about what just happened if there was something that happened in terms of an incident. The other thing that can happen that becomes a real issue is over the course of the race when you're up here. And again, it's pretty rudimentary. I've got an electric box, I got my broadcast box that hangs right here, and that's really about it. I'm up here with my spotter. But occasionally during a caution flag, I might have to use the restroom. Well, they're not far away, but it's a long walk down and a lot of stairs right down to that area. Typically when I get there, there's already a long line of other people with the same idea. So I ask, if you happen to see a guy that has a shirt on that says Radio Network on it and he's sprinting his way to that bathroom, have a heart. It's a long climb back up when I get here. It's a little windy as well, but it's a heck of a lot of fun. And the view is not a bad one over the northeast corner of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was Paul Page back in 1991 in the Indy 500 Open that said the lineage of drivers here are the best of the best. And that doesn't just apply to those in the cockpit. This is the basement floor, the ground floor, I guess is a better way of saying it, of the IMS Pagoda. And this is the IMS photo office. What do you mean by that, Jake? Well, I'll tell you. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway actually employs 15 to 20 photographers throughout the course of the month of May, whose job it is to do nothing but chronicle everything that takes place on the racetrack and around the grounds here in the festive atmosphere of the Indianapolis 500. Now think about that. Cars are going 240 miles an hour down the straight, and yet these men and women with the push of a button can get it perfectly crystal clear for all of history to see. As a matter of fact, if you ever go to the museum, you need to go up to the second floor because every picture they take is actually available for purchase right there in the annals of the IMS photo shop. I highly recommend it. You name the driver, the mechanic, they've taken a picture of it, I almost guarantee you. As a matter of fact, this dates back so far that over to my left, and it's dark right now, but that's appropriate because it was a dark room, this was actually where the negatives were brought in, and they would actually take the film and find out what they'd captured over the course of the day. It's the only negative thing that happens with this group, because when it comes to the IMS photo office, it's always upbeat, it's always fun, and it's always chronicled what takes place. The other great thing about it, and don't tell anybody this, but you got the golden badge so I can tell you, it also has the only private restrooms in the Pagoda.